A man who's run bars and restaurants on Sukhumvit Road for 22 years sat across from me last month and said 5 words I wasn't expecting. Bangkok is eating itself alive. He didn't say it with anger. He said it the way a doctor delivers bad news. Measured, certain, and a little sad. He's watched the street outside his restaurant go from a river of tourists at midnight to something that resembles a Tuesday afternoon in a mid-sized European suburb. And he's not alone. Across the city, from the neon-lit corridors of Nana Plaza to the backpacker hostels of Khao San Road, the people who built their lives around Bangkok's magnetic pull are whispering the same thing. Something has broken. And the people in charge either don't see it or they don't want you to. Bangkok. For decades, the undisputed capital of Southeast Asian tourism. A city that pulled in nearly 27 million international visitors in 2019, making it the most visited city on the planet. Ahead of Paris, ahead of London, ahead of Dubai. A city that generated over $21 billion in tourism revenue in a single year. A city where the night never ends, the food never disappoints, and the cost of living lets you live like royalty on a schoolteacher's salary. That was the promise. That was the brand. And for a long time, it was true. But walk down Khao San Road on a Saturday night in 2025, and you'll notice something that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. You can actually hear yourself think. The legendary backpacker strip that once pulsed with music from 40 bars. Simultaneously, where you couldn't take 3 steps without someone offering you a suit fitting or a tuk-tuk ride, now has gaps. Shuttered storefronts. Handwritten "For Rent" signs taped to metal shutters. The hostels that used to run 95% occupancy year-round are reportedly hovering around 50%, and some nights dipping into the 30s. According to data compiled by Thailand's Ministry of Tourism and Sports, while total visitor numbers have climbed back toward pre-pandemic levels on paper, the per-visitor spending has dropped by an estimated 18 to 22% compared to 2019. More people are technically arriving. They're just spending dramatically less, and they're staying for shorter periods. The average length of stay, which hovered around 9 nights in 2018, has reportedly fallen closer to 6. That difference, those 3 missing nights, represents billions in lost revenue flowing through hotels, restaurants, night markets, massage parlors, taxi drivers, and the thousands of small businesses that form the circulatory system of Bangkok's economy. Now, some will point to the numbers and say, but tourism is recovering. Thailand hit nearly 28 million arrivals in 2024. And on a spreadsheet, that looks like progress. But here's what the spreadsheet doesn't capture. The composition of that tourist base has fundamentally shifted. The high-spending Western and Japanese travelers who once dominated Bangkok's visitor profile, the ones who booked riverview suites at the Mandarin Oriental, who dropped serious money on bespoke tailoring and multi-day island excursions, have been increasingly replaced by budget-conscious group tours with tighter itineraries and prepaid packages that keep revenue within closed ecosystems. According to multiple hospitality industry analysts, the revenue per room across Bangkok's mid to upper tier hotels dropped between 15 and 25% in real terms over the past 2 years, even as headline occupancy figures showed modest gains. The math doesn't work, and everyone in the industry knows it. In January 2024, Thai authorities announced what they called a quality tourism initiative. And that single phrase set off a chain reaction that's still rippling through the economy. The idea, on paper, sounded reasonable. Attract wealthier visitors. Clean up the city's image. Move away from the Sin City reputation that officials found embarrassing on the international stage. But what followed was a cascade of regulatory tightening that hit Bangkok's nightlife economy. Its most famous and arguably most profitable tourist attraction. Like a sledgehammer. Closing times got enforced with new rigidity. Entertainment zones faced stricter licensing requirements. Cannabis, which Thailand had legalized in 2022 in a move that drew global headlines and a wave of cannabis tourism, began facing re-regulation discussions that created massive uncertainty for the hundreds of dispensaries that had opened virtually overnight. Reports emerged of police crackdowns on entertainment venues in areas like Thonglor and RCA, with owners describing what they called an atmosphere of unpredictable enforcement. Rules that seemed to shift week by week depending on which official was in charge. One bar owner in the Selam area, who asked not to be named, described paying the same licensing fees as always, but receiving a fraction of the operating hours. "They want us to be Singapore," he said. But Singapore built itself that way from the start. And that tension between what Bangkok is and what its government wants it to become sits at the heart of this crisis. Because Bangkok's magnetic pull was never about its temples alone. It wasn't just the Grand Palace or the floating markets that put the city on every travel list for 30 years. It was the totality of the experience, the sense that the city operated on its own rules, the 3 a.m. street food, the rooftop bars with no last call, the controlled chaos that somehow always felt safe. That energy, impossible to manufacture, impossible to replicate, was the product, and systematically dismantling it in the name of quality is like a restaurant getting rid of its most popular dish because the chef finds it undignified. While Bangkok debates closing times and zoning laws, Ho Chi Minh City just approved a massive waterfront entertainment district designed to do one thing: take Bangkok's crown. Vietnam's tourism infrastructure has exploded over the past 5 years, with Da Nang, Hoi An, and Phu Quoc now pulling visitors who would have defaulted to Thailand a decade ago. Vietnam recorded over 17.5 million international visitors in 2024, nearly triple its 2022 numbers. And the government has made no secret of its ambition to overtake Thailand as Southeast Asia's top destination by 2030. Their strategy is strikingly simple: better value, newer hotels, and fewer restrictions. But it's not just Vietnam. Bali continues to dominate the long-stay digital nomad market that Bangkok once owned, with Indonesia investing heavily in co-working infrastructure and extending visa options. The Philippines has aggressively marketed Cebu and Palawan as premium beach alternatives. Even Cambodia, long considered Bangkok's little sibling, is positioning Siem Reap and the coastal city of Sihanoukville as credible competitors with Chinese-backed development money pouring in. According to ASEAN tourism data, Thailand's market share of total Southeast Asian arrivals has reportedly declined from approximately 31% in 2019 to around 26% in 2024. 5 percentage points might not sound dramatic, but in a region welcoming over 100 million tourists annually, that's roughly 5 million visitors choosing somewhere else, and most of them aren't coming back. Here's what makes this worse. Bangkok's infrastructure, the physical backbone that's supposed to support all this tourism, is aging in ways that are becoming impossible to ignore. Anyone who's spent time in the city knows the reality on the ground. Sidewalks that were never designed for the pedestrian traffic, they carry, crumbling in places, blocked by vendors in others. A public transit system that, while expanding, still leaves massive gaps between where tourists stay and where they want to go. Flooding that turns entire neighborhoods into wading pools during monsoon season, a problem that climate experts say is intensifying as Bangkok sinks at a rate of roughly 2 centimeters per year. Air quality that regularly ranks among the worst in the world during burning season, with PM 2.5 readings in early 2025 reportedly hitting levels 5 to 7 times above WHO guidelines for weeks at a stretch. These aren't cosmetic issues. They're structural. And while billion-dollar condo towers keep rising along the Chao Phraya River, the basic infrastructure that makes a city functional and livable for visitors and residents alike continues to deteriorate in the neighborhoods that need investment most. Niran used to employ 14 people at his family's guest house near Soi Cowboy. Today, he employs 3, and 2 of them are his daughters working for tips. His story is not unique. It's a pattern. According to estimates from Thailand's Hospitality Workers Union, the tourism and hospitality sector has shed between 800,000 and 1 million jobs since the pandemic. And despite the headline recovery in visitor numbers, roughly 40% of those jobs reportedly have not returned. The ones that have come back often pay less, offer fewer hours, and come with none of the stability that the pre-2020 era provided. Niran told me his occupancy hasn't topped 60% in over a year. The tourists who come now, he said, They stay 2 nights, not 5. They eat at 7-Eleven, not at restaurants. They're here for the photos, not the experience. He paused. I don't blame them. Everything got more expensive. Then there's Priya, a 31-year-old from Mumbai who moved to Bangkok in 2021 to work in digital marketing, drawn by the low cost of living and the thriving expat community. She left in late 2024. The cost advantage disappeared, she told me. My rent went up 30% in 2 years. The co-working spaces got more expensive. And the visa situation? Every few months, there was a new rumor about crackdowns on remote workers, new rules, new fees. I just got tired of the uncertainty. She moved to Kuala Lumpur, pays less in rent, has a proper long-term visa, and doesn't worry about whether the rules will change next month. Multiply that story by tens of thousands, and you start to see the secondary crisis underneath the tourism numbers. Bangkok's expat community, which contributed enormously to the city's cosmopolitan energy, its restaurant scene, its creative economy, and yes, its nightlife, has been quietly thinning. Multiple relocation consultancies operating in Southeast Asia have reported a noticeable shift in client inquiries away from Bangkok and toward Kuala Lumpur, Ho Chi Minh City, and Bali since mid-2023. Here's the question nobody in Thailand's tourism ministry wants to answer. What exactly is Bangkok selling now? Because the old product, the unbeatable combination of affordability, freedom, food, nightlife, culture, and warm weather, has been deliberately undermined by the very institutions that should be protecting it. The affordability is eroding. Freedom is being regulated away. The nightlife is being strangled. The food scene, while still extraordinary, faces the same cost pressures squeezing every other sector. And the culture, the irreplaceable, organic, lived-in culture of a city that grew wild and beautiful precisely because nobody tried to control it, is being paved over by sanitized developments and policies written by people who seem embarrassed by the thing that made Bangkok matter. Now, to be fair, Thai authorities have introduced several initiatives aimed at boosting tourism. The visa-free entry program has been expanded to include travelers from more countries. There have been investments in transit expansion, including new BTS and MRT extensions. Campaigns targeting high-value Chinese and Indian tourists have been launched with significant budgets. And there's ongoing discussion about creating dedicated entertainment, zones that might offer more flexibility for nightlife businesses. These are real efforts, and dismissing them entirely would be dishonest. But the scale of these responses does not yet match the scale of the problem. Expanding visa-free access helps, but it doesn't address why per-visitor spending is falling. Building new train lines helps, but it doesn't fix the flooding or the air quality. Targeting Chinese group tours helps fill hotel rooms, but it doesn't replace the diversified, high-spending visitor base that made Bangkok's economy resilient. For Bangkok to genuinely reverse this trajectory, 3 things would need to happen almost simultaneously. First, a coherent and consistent regulatory framework for nightlife and entertainment, not the current whiplash of crackdowns and reversals. That makes it impossible for business owners to plan. Second, a massive and sustained infrastructure investment focused not on prestige projects, but on the fundamentals: drainage, sidewalks, air quality, public transit connectivity in tourist-heavy areas. Third, and this is the hardest one, an honest public conversation about Bangkok's identity. Not what officials wish it were, what it actually is. What made it magnetic to 100 million visitors over 3 decades? You cannot market yourself as the land of smiles while simultaneously criminalizing the smile. But here's why that's unlikely. The political dynamics in Thailand make long-term policy consistency almost impossible. Tourism strategy shifts with every new government, every new minister, every new power realignment. The businesses being squeezed don't have a unified political voice. And the international perception, once Bangkok's greatest asset, takes years to rebuild, but only months to damage. There's a playbook for what happens to cities that turn their backs on the thing that made them famous, and it never ends well. Havana tried it. Sanitize the edges, tighten control, and watch the mystique drain away. Parts of Amsterdam are trying it right now, pushing back against the very tourism culture they cultivated for decades, and facing intense economic blowback from the service workers and small business owners who depend on it. Bangkok isn't Amsterdam, and it certainly isn't Havana. But the pattern is the same. You build something magnetic. It gets messy. Officials get embarrassed. They crack down. And the magic? The thing that can't be legislated into existence or regulated back once it's gone, just quietly disappears. 6 months from now, we'll revisit this story. And either the data will show a genuine course correction, spending up, stays longer, businesses reopening, expats returning, or it'll confirm what the man on Sukhumvit Road already knows. That something irreplaceable is being lost. Not because of market forces, or pandemic aftershocks, or competition from Vietnam, but because the people in charge decided that the real Bangkok wasn't good enough. And by the time they realized they were wrong, the Bangkok that millions of us fell in love with may only exist in memory. If this analysis opened your eyes to what's really happening, consider subscribing. We're tracking this story, and others like it across Southeast Asia. And the next chapter is going to matter. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you've been to Bangkok recently, I want to hear what you saw. Because the truth about this city isn't going to come from press releases. It's going to come from the people who were actually there.